I had such mixed feelings for so long, but this book ended up being so good. Welcome to talking about Again But Better by Christine Riccio. For those of you who don't know, this is like a coming-of-age story about a girl who goes to study abroad to try to kind of recreate her first year of college after feeling like she failed her first freshman year experience. It's written by a very popular booktuber, so it was really interesting to like get a book from her after hearing her discuss books for so many years. I'm a big Christine Riccio fan. I've loved her book reviews for like almost a decade. I've watched her skits on Paul and Bananas 20. I was a fan of like her and Katie's long distance chill channel while that was still alive. I was so pumped to read something by her. So I got this book like immediately when it came out, and I found it hard to read at the beginning. First of all, like I've listened to her voice for so many years that like I'm hearing it from her point of view, and I know that she studied abroad. I like can see so much of Christine in Shane that I like was having a really hard time separating the two, and I really don't like it when that happens to me, where I like know so much about the author that I'm having a hard time separating the author from the character, and that happens a lot to me with like John Green books because I watch a lot of Vlogbrothers, and so like that was a really big turnoff for me at the beginning, where I was like, I just can't separate the two. And they look alike, they act so much alike. Obviously this was influenced by a lot of her real life experiences, and also like I personally studied abroad and I wasn't in London, but I was pretty close, and so like a lot of things that were happening, I was like, this feels so much like, you know, personal experiences for me too. I was having a hard time escaping into the book when it was like relatable to me, and I knew so much about Christine already, so like I had a hard time getting into it. But then it took me a little while and I ended up getting the audiobook, and after that like I just fell into it. I loved it so much. Like you have to get to about, for me, it was halfway before I really thought that the plot was no longer predictable, because at first I was like, oh, like I know where this is going. Like it felt very predictable rom-com to me. Oh, was I wrong? If you don't want to be spoiled, go into it knowing that if you are also having a hard time getting into it at the beginning, that you just have to keep going for a little bit. Give it a second, because it's gonna get a lot better. There's going to be twists and turns that you like don't see coming, and I really, really enjoyed it. Goodbye, people who don't want to be spoiled. Go read it, come back. It's a quick read. Let's discuss this, shall we? So I started at the author's note, obviously reading it from Christine's perspective, and I just loved getting that note from her in the beginning, and I also like really relate to this. As I did get older, like I still love young adult literature, obviously, but all of the characters, like I'm now 23. Some of these characters are almost a decade younger than me, and it's really, really weird to constantly read characters that are a good bit younger than me. So like reading a character that was like more my age and like dealing with coming of age stuff that you're still dealing with past the like 16, 17 range was really refreshing, really nice. So for the book, we're in 2011. Shane, our main character, has decided to study abroad because her first year of college sucked and she felt really alone. She's like, I'm gonna do a do-over and go study abroad in England. And she's on the plane on the way over, and she's writing in her notebook, which she calls a horcrux, which I thought was hilarious. And she's like writing down all the things that she wants to do that she's been too scared to do so far in her college career. Kiss a boy you like. Stop kiss blocking self. That was so funny. And also she really wants to write a novel. Like obviously another relatable thing. I love to write. Like that was one of my goals when I studied abroad. It didn't happen, but like she gets to where she's gonna live, and immediately she sees like a cute boy through the window and is like, oh, remember that thing that I said about wanting to kiss a boy? And he's really cute, he's washing dishes. It's so funny. She's like, why are guys washing dishes attractive? And we kind of get to know our crew, and it is very like at the beginning, basic study abroad story, figure out the group dynamics type of thing, which I think is a necessary part of these type of books. It's not always the most fun part, but it has to be set up as you move forward. I thought it was so funny where she was talking about like the purse that her mom made her have, like this crossbody purse that like could go under her clothes if she needed it to. And it's so funny. She's like, try to cut off my purse now, thieves. And it was like so good. And it's really fun, like, watching them all want to travel, because they go out to dinner, the flat, except for Atticus, who can't, decide to go to Rome for the weekend. And, like, they're just so excited to go to all these places because, like, in Europe, everything's so close together that they're like, we're gonna go see everything. Oh my gosh. So, before they leave, Shane and Pilot, the cute boy she saw in the window, are getting coffee. And the barista is someone that Shane recognizes, because back in the plane on the way over, this woman was like pretty much reading over her shoulder like all these things and goals she was setting for herself, and like pretty much told her to like go get it, like you got this. And then she appears as this barista, and Shane's just like, what the heck? Like, what odds that I would see her again. So we have like game nights and all this fun stuff happening, and then it kind of comes out that Pilot has a girlfriend, kind of. And so Shane is very upset about this, obviously. Pilot is like, I think me and this girl Amy are gonna be doing things like long distance, kind of. We don't like the idea. We're gonna see where it goes. And I was just like, this is so annoying. So it turns out that Shane is going to be going to an internship at Pact for Travel, which is a magazine. Her parents don't know about it. They think she's in England on a pre-med program. Oh, that's a can of worms that's gonna get burst open later, and like you can feel it. It's just like, but like it's so on the back burner at the moment that I'm like, okay, we don't have to think about this, like let's stick with now. But she obviously feels really, really guilty about it. Her parents have pretty much told her to become a doctor, and she has gone along with that until now, and this is her first time like stepping out and doing what she wants to do. I love the chapter titles. They're all song lyrics, stuff like that. Like chapter 10 was like Ro Mama, and I was like singing Bad Romance in my head for like 3 days after reading that chapter title. They're in Rome, and on their first night out, Shane loses her purse and she leaves it like in the restaurant, and she says, "This is your fault, wine." And like I think back to all these videos that Christina's made about like how much she hates alcohol and like and how much she like just doesn't enjoy it, and I was like, is it because you lost your purse in Rome? Like there were all these times where I was like, how true to life is it? Like I want to sit down and go through and be like, did this actually happen? Like which parts are like 100% nonfiction? Pilot and Shane have this cute little conversation about like if they could go back in time, where would they go? And so Pilot decides that he wants to go to a Beatles concert, and Shane is down for that. Like both of them love the Beatles. I love how people are acting like the Beatles are not like super duper mainstream. Everyone's like, you've heard of the Beatles? I'm like, who hasn't heard of the Beatles? And then Shane says that she'd want to go back to when they were writing the Constitution, and she'd like to put in her 2 cents, but like she'd dress up as a man. And I thought that was really funny. They go and do all the like touristy things in Rome, which was like cute to see them see, and like we get to read through like Shane's notebook as she goes, which is like a really fun way to break up the story into like kind of different types of storytelling, which I really enjoyed. So we get to this part where Babe has a crush on this guy named Chad, what a name, and she is trying to plan Chad's birthday, and so she wants to go to Paris, and she doesn't want to go alone, so she asks Shane and Pilot to go with her. So these 4 are going on an awkward double date where no one's dating, and they're gonna go to Paris. At this point, Chad sounds kind of like a douchebag, honestly, and I was kind of hoping, you know, maybe this will be like a trip that turns his mind around. Maybe he'll like tall girls like Babe instead of short girls, because apparently that's what he told Babe. He only dates short girls. So like something that was really interesting about this story was being able to see social media interactions with her family, how they interact on Facebook and stuff like that, which was interesting. And her cousins see all these pictures of Shane and Pilot, and they start commenting like, who's your boyfriend, who's this, and like her, obviously like her whole family seems to be very close at this point. Like all the cousins talk, all the aunts and uncles talk, and they're like talking about Shane and this boyfriend that doesn't exist. And so Leo starts like messaging her on Facebook Messenger, like asking about this boyfriend, and Shane gets really, really defensive because Pilot has a girlfriend. She doesn't want him to see these like comments on her Facebook profile about her and Pilot, so she blocks her cousins on Facebook. And like at the time it seems like sad but not a really big deal, and then like as the story progresses we see like how even her actions across the ocean are affecting her family back home, and like how they all are so interconnected and stuff like that, which was, I feel like, really realistic to see how her being gone and her cutting off her cousins was like kind of a domino effect for other things, and it was just, it stressed me out a lot to see these things unraveling. So they go to a restaurant in Paris, and like guess who's the bartender? It's that redheaded woman on the plane and at Starbucks, and she's following her. I just didn't see where this is going. I was like, what a coincidence. This woman is literally everywhere. Like I didn't see any of the like magical realism coming in at all. It seemed like these were hallucinations. So I was like, I just don't understand why it was her. I was like, maybe this is just like the hallucinations of this woman are a reminder to her that she needs to, you know, be outgoing and do these things, say her thoughts and stuff like that. But like obviously that turns into her spirit guide, which I thought was hilarious. First they try to climb up the Eiffel Tower. They can't go all the way up because it's too windy, which was kind of sad. Shane is like, oh, we can't have me and Pilot's would-be romantic moment. But they wait for the Eiffel Tower to light up, and it was so beautiful, and they're all so excited. It was a really fun moment, even though Chad was there, who I don't like. And they go to this bar because it's Chad's birthday, he wants to go out. They're playing all these songs that Shane really loves, and Pilot gets really close to her, and she's like, Houston, we have contact. He's going to kiss her, and she kiss blocks herself. Pulls away, runs away, has to go to the bathroom. And when she comes back out, Chad is there because Chad is the worst. And he like surprise kisses her. Babe sees it. And then Shane is pissed off. She's like, you know Babe likes you, like why would you do this? And she gets really upset because she's like, that was my first kiss with some drunk guy I don't like who's supposed to be like with my friend. And that night, like, they have a really sweet moment with Pilot and Shane, and he kind of crawls into her bunk and he's like asking her what's wrong because she's had a really hard day. She tells him like, this is the scariest thing I've ever done, and like kind of comes out with her whole story about like how she's supposed to be here in pre-med, how she like made up this pamphlet, tricked her parents, like all this stuff. And like Pilot really respects her for going after her dreams and is like, that's intense, like that's so cool that you did that. And then it comes out that Amy's going to come and visit Pilot, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Shane's so upset that she gets up and a chair topples over from the table in their like common space area. This was like the funniest thing. I was like, is this a tribute to Bella Swan, who is like the most clumsy person ever? Because like every time Shane stood up, a chair fell over. So she goes to a restaurant, and who's there but this woman she keeps seeing all the time. She like snatches away Shane's notebook and pretty much checks in on her checklist. She's like, oh, I remember this checklist you have, like, did you do any of this stuff? And she's like, did you kiss the boy you like? And she's like, no. And she's like, did you start your novel? No. I was like, this is really uncomfortable. Like, this woman, like, is clearly real if she's able to take things away. Like, Shane's not crazy. Like, she would maybe see the woman in another person. Like, I can understand, like, you know, a bartender looking like someone and it, like, jogging your memory. But, like, this is clearly a person who's found her. Momentarily, she's like, did my parents hire a babysitter to follow me in England? But no, her parents actually show up to surprise her. Her dad insists that everyone comes out to dinner with them, including Pilot and Amy, and Pilot's the only one who knows that Shane is here like under a false like pretense of what she's studying. So Pilot is trying to be a good friend, like despite the fact that they haven't talked in a while, he's trying to cover for her. Shane has lied, saying that she and Sarah are both in like a pre-med program. Every time Shane's dad is asking Sarah a question, Pilot will like pipe up and like try to change the subject, and Shane's dad gets really mad at him. And I was so uncomfortable. This is like the most uncomfortable family dinner, but also there's friends. Pilot's trying so hard, but it just doesn't work. When her dad blows up at her, yelling at her, I was unwell. I was like, this man, I could not. Like, I was like, kick the parents out of the restaurant. Like, I did feel kind of bad for Shane's mom at this point, but her dad, like, just has no pity in how angry he is. And it's not like they didn't know Shane likes to write because she told them this before. Her parents like storm out and leave the country. And like all of her friends feel awful because some of them didn't know to cover for her. And then she comes back later that night and finds Amy reading her notebook. This girl, like Amy was obviously worried Pilot was into another girl, but I mean, this is essentially her diary that Amy is going through. Like, the worst ending to the worst possible day. Shane, like, is just so upset that she quits her internship. And, like, that was her whole plan, was, like, maybe this internship will lead to a job, and, like, I can prove to my parents that writing is a job. You cannot quit this job. Like, this is the only thing that's gonna save her here, and she quits it. So it's time to leave. And so the whole time, right as they're packing up, Shane is like, I'm gonna tell Pilot that I like him, or whatever. She ends up not being able to do it. Like, she can't muster up the courage. She gets all the way to the airport, then decides to jump in a cab, turn around, go tell Pilot. And she's missed him by like 5 minutes probably. And when she gets back, like it was so upset. Like her parents didn't even come to pick her up. Leo is like, what did you do to piss them off like that? Like what is happening? And it kind of comes out that like Leo, he's dropped out of school, like horrible year. And a big part of this book is that like the two of them didn't come together at this point. Like they weren't there for each other. But we move into 2017, which is part 2. So 6 years later, she's graduated college and has 2 more years under her belt. And she's in this horrible interview to like shadow this doctor, I don't remember. But like her boyfriend, Melvin, what a name, has proposed. But like not really. She's just like dealing with being an adult. Like she's going to be a doctor for gastroenterology. That sounds appetizing. But then Shane decides, like she's in New York for these interviews. She lives in California now because she had to get away from her parents who like were so pissed off at her for years. And she knows that Pilot works in New York. So she tracks him down and he's shocked to see her. She wants to get a cup of coffee, and like she asks him if he's still making music, and he's not, and he's asking her if she's still writing, and she's not. And I'm like, y'all have like changed so much, and like it's like they've lost their dreams. But they go to this kind of hidden coffee shop, and the redheaded woman is there. What is going on? Shane tells Pilot, like, Melvin proposed, but this is how he proposed. You know, we should probably get married. It makes sense for tax reasons. So she told him she needs to think about it. And also, like, side note, apparently Pilot is still with Amy. And Pilot's like, why are you telling me all this? And Shane pretty much is like, you know what, I'm braver now. And it tells him that, you know, I had feelings, I want to get over the idea of us, like, it's stuck in my brain, like, how can I move forward with Melvin? Like, how can I just move forward with this life that has been set out before her if she's still thinking about Pilot so many years later? So they kind of get into a bit of a fight because Shane is kind of confronting Pilot about, like, is this really what you want? Like, Amy, are you in love with her? Like, this job that you have, you're not doing music, like, what is going on? They decide to leave because they just can't talk about this. And the redheaded barista woman is like, bye, have fun. They get into the elevator on the way down, and it stops, and it's stuck, and then it falls. Back in time. Okay, I can get on board with this. And I was like, oh, I get it. Again, but better is not just like her study abroad experience. It's her second study abroad experience of repeating the study abroad, which I thought was pretty clever. And she's like sitting in the kitchen that they all shared, and she has her old laptop in front of her that's been resurrected from the dead, and it has the blog post of London. And at this point, this is when it got very interesting for me, because I figured, you know, 2011 Pilot is gonna walk out and she's gonna have the chance to do this all over again. But Pilot is also aware that he's back in time, which is what made this good. Because I think if he hadn't remembered, if he like was just his normal self, that this would have made the story flop. But instead, this is what made it really unique for me. And like, he's like, I can't believe you called Atticus in on this. Like, how did you recreate our flat? Like, what on earth are you doing? Like, you're crazy. And he gets really mad at her. He settles down later. But I was like, he thinks Shane kidnapped him out of an elevator and recreated London so that he would like her. What on earth are you thinking? And they go to get food, and the redheaded lady is there. She's one of the waitresses. And Shane is like, this is our spirit guide. This is the Hagrid. And she pretty much tells them, like, this is your chance to rewrite the past. She's like, if you want to go back to the present moment and forget this chance ever happened, like, there's a button along your journey, just press the button, you'll go back to your regular lives. She doesn't tell them where it is. And at first, like, Shane's kind of enjoying this. Eventually, they both kind of accept the situation that they're in. I loved when they went out to that restaurant because, like, the first time they went out, Shane has this habit of, like, slamming down her cups whenever she drinks. Like, Pilot made fun of her or whatever. And this time, like, Pilot's still pissed off, but she sets down her cup because she's retrained herself after he pointed that out. And he kind of like has a little mouth twitch that looks like a smile. He's like, I was just noticing how soft the landing was there. Yeah, some weirdo yelled at me 6 years ago about it. And shortly after, Pilot like really apologizes for being so angry at Shane about this. Like, obviously it's not her fault. Like, she could not have like put this elaborate thing together. And he's like, I'm just as bad as the chairs, because he was like so awful to her. I was like, that's funny. And then he like finds her later and she's writing again, and like she's happy to be writing, and I was like, this is what we needed. Like, he's got his guitar back, like he has time to do this, and she's gonna be able to write her novel and everything's gonna be great. But I was wrong. They end up recreating the Rome trip. Like, they're doing everything they did all over again. And but this time, like, they're obviously different people because they've grown so much over the past several years. And Shane is just like, this is a chance for me to like enjoy myself. And so she and Pilot kind of go out and meander Rome, the streets of Rome at night, which was really nice to see them have that moment together. But then they end up kissing. Okay, so this is good, but it's also bad because Shane has a boyfriend, but he's in the future. So maybe she's free, but technically Pilot still has Amy that he's dating. So just to cover her bases, Shane decides to break up with future Melvin. So she sends him this letter like, if you meet me in the future, my name is Shane. Do not talk to me. And she like breaks up with him, and she's like, I'm really sorry, like this is really hard, and I know you don't know me and this is weird, but we're officially broken up. But at the moment, Pilot hasn't said anything about breaking up with Amy, so So our crew goes out to a restaurant. Shane gets her regular ravioli, she bites into it, and there's something hard inside, and she's like, oh my gosh, and runs away. It turns out it's this locket. It's the button. You open it, and there's a button inside, and that's what would take them back to their normal lives. But she finds out, like, you know, if we press this button, we're not going to remember any of what happened. This is when Shane kind of has to convince Pilot to stay in the past. She's like, I don't want to go back. And she's like, do you really want to? Like, what is so great about our lives right now? They've decided to stick around for a little bit, see what happens, and just love Shane trying to, like, convince Pilot of this. What are you so afraid of? Take a risk, Pilot. Make a change. Break away. And Pilot's just like, are you quoting Kelly Clarkson? So they decide to stay, and they've decided that they're not going to press the button without the other one knowing it. Pilot decides he's going to break up with Amy. Yay! I was like, so all of our problems are solved now, right? No. So, like, second run, Shane decides that she's not going to post anything on Facebook because that didn't go so well the first time. So, like, she's pretty much solely posting things on her blog, and, like, it's now becoming more of a focus for her. And, like, Leo asks, like, what she's up to, and for her, it's weird to hear from Leo because he's kind of been cut off from the family a little bit, and she doesn't know why. Pilot says that he's broken up with Amy officially, and Pilot says he's noticed a change. He's like, you're bolder now, and I really liked that. Like, even though Shane's, like, really struggled the past several years, like, she is a different person, and that's why her experience this time is going to be different. I thought it was so funny when it seemed like he was going to go in for a kiss, and instead he whispers, like, I watched all 6 seasons of Lost, and they were fantastic. I just love that that's what really gets her. She's like, he's watched Lost. And she says always, and immediately she's like, oh, cringe. Because, like, all these books, you know, like, they say always to each other all the time. And then she, like, brings up The Fault in Our Stars, and she's like, they say okay, like, what should our thing be? And they decide on lamppost. This time when they go out to the bar in Paris, they actually kiss. This time she manages to avoid Chad trying to kiss her and instead slaps him. Yes. Babe has been her best friend for years now, and, like, there's so many things that, like, she finds out that even though they're in the past, like, she never knew these things about Babe. Like, apparently Babe's name is Barbara. And then, like, to jumpstart Pilot's career, Shane insists on her and Pilot singing a cover of Wrecking Ball before Wrecking Ball comes out. And I thought that was really funny. And I also love, like, she doesn't have a YouTube channel, but, like, she has her blog, and it's called French Watermelon 19. I'm like, Poland Bananas 20. I just love all these little nods to, like, people who have, like, followed her throughout the years. Like, all these, there's references to books and songs and stuff that, like, we've watched Christine, the author, discuss, and now we see Shane, the character, love. Shane and Pilot hang out all night, and then they wake up and they're late for their internships. And I was like, literally, you have the chance to do everything over, like, do it right. Everything seems fine until Shane shows up to the internship and she's like, hey, like, I just wanted to discuss, like, the article I'm gonna write for the magazine. And the editor's just like, you know, I don't really know if that's on the table anymore. And it kind of seems it's because she was late the first day and she has been acting like an intern that only kind of cares and not like an all-star intern. Amy shows up. She apparently didn't get Pilot's breakup voicemail because he did it over voicemail. And then Shane starts freaking out because she's like, Pilot, I'm becoming us, like, not me. Like, this whole trip was about, like, resetting her life, kind of, like, and she's just kind of getting obsessed with their relationship. So she pretty much is like, I'm not the person that shows up late to things and forgets to talk to her friends. And then Sawyer, her laptop breaks. It hurt my soul. Shane's over it, so she runs outside. She tries to press the button. Of course, there's spirit guides there. She's like, not how it works. Keep trying. And I was like, oh, I was glad it didn't work because I was so stressed out. And I love that at her lowest moment, like, she finds a bookstore and she finds Harry Potter. And, like, I mean, that's so, like, that famous quote, like, when you need it, Hogwarts will always be here to welcome you home. And I feel like for so many readers, like, this was like a big moment because, like, they've all felt like this too. Anyone who loves to read that much, like, we all have those books that, like, do that for us, like, welcome us home. And it was nice to see that happen for Shane when she was, like, having such a hard time. At this point, Shane starts kicking butt at her internship. Form these relationships with these people she worked with in the internship 6 years ago that she quit, that she didn't have before. And, like, now that she has more confidence in herself, she's actually learning way more than she would have the first time around. But then her parents come and visit and she's like, I'm ready this time. And, like, things still fall apart. Not as horribly as they did before, but, like, her dad's still horrible to her. And I was like, I'm so sorry, like, this happened again. This time around, Shane is more in touch with Leo, and she's like, hey, this is happening, like, what's going on with you? Leo has been dating a guy, and he's really afraid of, like, talking to his family about it, and kind of, like, being able to see behind the scenes of what happened before when he lost his baseball scholarship and he dropped out of school, like being able to know what was going on behind all that. Shane's just like, you know, like, I'm here for you. Leo seems like he's ready to recover their relationship, which has kind of been rocky. Shane's article gets published on the magazine site, which was really exciting. Shane meets Wendy, the editor's husband, and there's this really important moment for Shane. Shane is shocked that Wendy has a husband, and Wendy's like, why are you so surprised I'm married? And she was like, well, it just seems like you're so good at your job and independent. And Wendy kind of explains to her that you can be both of those things and share it with another person, where Shane was having this whole thing where she's like, I can't be that and date Pilot because it's just all consuming. And so like being able to see that balance in someone she admires so much, I think was really an important step for her to take. However, she hasn't applied this yet, and she kind of just puts in the work. Like, she goes to class, she writes, and I was like so proud of her, but I was like, we still have to get Pilot. Like, obviously this story isn't gonna end without him, right? Shane decides to go on a adventure alone, which I think was an important step for her. And she goes hiking, and she hears music, and it's Pilot playing the guitar, and she's just like, how did you know? And he's like, you don't think I stopped reading like French Watermelon 19? And he's like, and Babe also kind of helped with the specifics about where you would be. I love that Babe endorsed that. And they decide to redo their past the way they would want to do it, with each other and making music and writing, and I was like, yes! I was so happy for them. And then also Shane is like, I'm gonna get kicked out if I don't do what my parents want, but then she gets this text that she's got an interview at 17 magazine. It was great. And then the epilogue, it's so cute because it's like this interview. She's talking to Shane, and then we realize Pilot has a ring, and it's in a wooden doll of like the Russian dolls of the Beatles that we see at the very beginning of the story. He's hidden the ring in the last one, and we know it because it's rattling. They're having this super romantic moment later that night. Their spirit guide shows up, and Shane freaks out. She's like, what is she doing here? And it turns out like the spirit guide needs to lock it back if they're sure about their choice, and they are. She gives the locket back, and I guess the spirit guide is off to go ruin and then set correct someone else's life. And then he proposes, and it's so cute. I'm really excited for her next book. She's apparently writing a new one. Overall, I really liked it. It was a perfect little rom-com with some magical realism thrown in. What did you think? Were there any parallels, like for those of you who follow her, that you really love? Please like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to talk about more book stuff. My name's Katelyn. Thanks for watching. Bye!